I'm going to use a rigger and a liner brush to do thin lines as well as calligraphic lines in just a moment. A liner brush is a brush used by sign painters to create straight lines with sharp edges. They work best with very, very fluid paint. They are typically a small brush with very, very long bristles on a round ferrule. It allows the paint to flow in long extended lines. The important part of this is to really make it fluid. So here I have some paint, and I'm going to take a little bit of this, and I have my liner brush, and it's really got to be fluid. If it's not, you're going to get a dry brush effect in a hurry. And the idea is that you can make long extended lines. They don't always have a real opaque quality to them, but you can pull them and make a whole lot of very thin lines. Probably add fluid really regularly. Your puddle tends to dry up in a hurry. Would be great to put whiskers on a cat, tiny little branches on a tree, outlines like we did on our first painting. Keep putting more fluid in so that it keeps that line flowing. The more fluid it is, the longer those lines will go. So fill in that square with a series of practice lines. Some of you had trouble with this in the first practice we did where it didn't stay very fluid. Be sure that they're not turning into dry brush marks, and that if you were to touch this paper later, you wouldn't feel any dimension to the paint. You can see in this book, this artist has come in with a liner brush and done thin lines and then some calligraphic lines. So they're thick to thin. As the branches get thicker, as they get closer to the trunk of the tree, they're going to get thicker. As they get farther out from the tree, they're going to get thinner. And this is what nature actually does. So here you see they've drawn some branches behind here, and they're going to go back and put foliage on top. That gives you the structure of the branches. With a liner brush and a calligraphic line, you could use a regular brush for the calligraphic line if you'd like. We're going to go over and do a calligraphic line now. Calligraphic line is a line that has a thick, thin change in it. And with a paintbrush, you typically have, the best way to do that is just by adding more and less pressure as you work. So I can take almost any brush. Typically a round brush that's fairly soft works the best. Pin it down a little bit like you would so that it's going to float, and then what I can do is I can start and then I can push thicker and I can lift it up and get thinner. Some objects are going to want to be painted with a calligraphic line that changes. As you work this, if you push it down and get thicker, if you want it to get thinner, you have to pull it up very, very slowly and give the brush enough time to regather. So you can get a leaf shape if you want to do it that way. You could push down, get wider, thinner, and wider again if you wanted. The biggest trick is letting it, a little too much paint on my brush there. I'm sorry, too much fluid on my brush there. That mark's not very good. Typically when I make strands of grass, I like to start at the base and work my way up and let the brush lift off as I want to end it. But if you want it to be a leaf stroke that might be on a piece of bamboo or on a fern, it may be that you want to do a calligraphic series of lines And the biggest trick on the end, getting that second point, is to take it really slow. Push down a little wider and push up, pull it up really slow. If you can spin it a little bit, that helps too. You can use, that's just a regular brush being used that way. I can take a liner brush and do the same thing, where I can get fatter by pushing it down and thinner. And what I would suggest, if there's something that you want to happen on your canvas, just try it on a piece of newspaper or something. Just see if it's what you want it to do. Too much fluids dumping out doesn't do real well either. But you can put down and then lift up, and then you can get thicker again if you want. To make a calligraphic line, it's just more pressure is going to give you a wider line, less pressure is going to give you a thinner line. The biggest trick is if you're trying to go from thin, you start off with just barely touching the surface, and then as you push down it's going to get wider, but the trick is to let it come back very slowly to get the point on the other end of it. That's a calligraphic line.